Hello, everybody. I hope you're doing well. Welcome to Leadership Live 2021, week 23. We are in week 23. So I just finished doing what I hope you are preparing to do, and that is share. Have you shared this? Have you shared this? If you haven't, you have a few moments right now to go ahead and hit share. So I am over the top excited. And for those of you all who are like, okay, I'm glad you're excited, but who are you? And what is this? Well, first and foremost, welcome to Leadership Live. I am Dr. Anita, and Leadership Live is the sharing of journeys. It's the sharing of journeys. Every single week, I have myself and a different leader. We come on and we share our journeys with you and our leadership journeys and talk about the experiences that really have made a difference in the way we operate as leaders, as well as just kind of the way we operate in life, right? So we'll be doing that tonight. And who am I? I am Dr. Renita. I am an educational leadership strategist, and I just realized, hold on, the crown is gone, and I know exactly where it is. We know how to fix that. That was going to drive me crazy. So I figured I might as well fix it. Yeah. That was a leadership decision because leaders make decisions. And I am Dr. Anita, an educational leadership strategist. I am also an author, the author of Stepmom, Trials, Tribulations, and Triumphs, editions 1 and 2, as well as While You Are Sleeping, the perfect children of all ages book. You like my commercial? I feel like it should end that way. I am also the founder of The Refining Life, a 501c3 nonprofit organization whose mission is to provide you with experiences to have your mindset shifted so that you can lead a more positive and productive life. And The Refining Life would like all those ladies out there to go ahead and mark your calendar for September 25th. Refining the Mind Women's Conference is coming, and it will be virtual and in person this year. I am also a speaker. I am an educator, a veteran educator, having served grades kindergarten through college. I am also a wife and a mother of four. A mother of four. I birthed 2 children and I own 2 children. Why do I say I own them? Well, I didn't get the privilege of birthing them, but I have fed them for a very long time. And I figure all those years combined goes into ownership. Sometimes you have to rent to own. I can't say I rented them because they lived with me, or they used to live with me. Both of them did. But look, I put in the time. So I own them. So, but no, they are babies of my heart. So I birthed 2 and I own 2. I am a mentor, a mentee, and I love one-on-one coaching. That's one of my newfound passions. And I also am currently a program director for a after-school program. So I do all of these wonderful things. Oh, and I'm a queen. That, the whole thing about the crown. I'm like, where's my other crown? But I'm a queen. I am the current reigning Mrs. Black North Carolina, as well as the Elite Southern Charms North Carolina, Ultimate Grand Supreme, and I am the East Coast USA National Talent Performer of the Year. And I wear all of my titles very proudly, very humbly, and with a lot of honor. But in all of those roles comes leadership. And there have been a number of journeys that I have been on. And in 2019, I did Leadership Live for an entire 52 weeks by myself. But God put on my heart that this year for 2021, I needed to bring on some friends. And so I'm about to bring one to you. Just be ready. She is right fabulous and amazing. Believe me or not, go ahead and be ready for her. Not only is she just about to see how gorgeous she is. Let me just go ahead and bring her in here. Look at Brittany. Brittany Carroll looking gorgeous. It don't take much. See, Brittany can come on here in a tank top and just be fabulous because she is. I have to give you a little bit more accoutrement, but not Brittany, not this gorgeous woman, this diplomatic woman, if you will. She does all the things. And so, Brittany, I'm going to give you a chance to introduce yourself. And I'm going to just step away for a second. Go ahead and tell the people about you.
First, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Renita. And also, she's my soror. So I am pretty honored that she reached out for me to actually share my journey and also my story. I won't take up too long. I am a Foreign Service Officer, which is also a diplomat. I work for Department of State, and I actually just recently returned from serving overseas in China. My first tour was in Georgetown, Guyana, which is in the Caribbean. and I am a management code officer. So I deal a lot with sort of managing people, resources, to make sure that what the U.S. government does overseas is fully functional, staffed, and have everything they need to do their job. Um, I'm just excited to be here. I'm excited to be home. I finally got over my jet lag. And so, I'm just here to share sort of like, my journey and what I think about leadership and also answer questions for the audience.
Well, that is a whole lot. I love how you make it sound so simple. Well, I am just, and all I do, and I just was overseas. Those little things. My goodness gracious. Girl, you are so amazing. Let's start there. So you mentioned a role that I think that a lot of people hear about, but we know nothing about. Like we think we know, but we have no idea. It's one of those situations.
Yeah.
And that is, you said a foreign service officer is how you said, or a diplomat.
Yes, yeah. So most people hear the word diplomat, and I think they know how to spell it. They see it in a dictionary. I don't actually think they know what they do, which makes a lot of sense because we actually have various roles. So, foreign service officer is the actual official title, but diplomat basically means that you are representing your government overseas. So, because I'm an American citizen, I'm representing the U.S. government. And if you have bilateral relationships with any country, which the U.S. has bilateral relationships with most countries, we usually have a presence in that country. And we are there to basically maintain either the political and economic relationship between our country and their country. And to also deal with some very serious issues, some not so serious issues, but we play a role in sort of the international arena when it comes to policy.
Mm.
Yeah.
That sounds like a lot.
It can be. It can be. Everybody has their own role to fill. And like I mentioned it earlier, I'm a management code officer. So my job specifically is to deal with managing mostly the internal affairs of the embassy or the consulate overseas. So just because I used to be a teacher in my former life, but when you think about the U.S. presence in a country, embassy is basically the building, that actual structure, physical structure that's in the capital city of a country. Some countries are really big, like the U.S., and so we have other physical structures in major cities, and we call those consulates. So it's not like the official building, which is the embassy. It's another extension, another branch almost of that mission, of the U.S. mission in that country. So, for example, China is a huge country, right? So we have the embassy in Beijing, which is the capital, but we also have a consulate in Chengdu. Well, that closed. Shenyang, Shanghai, and Guangzhou. And I was stationed in Guangzhou. We also have consulate in Hong Kong and Taiwan. So countries that are super big, you're going to have multiple locations, and vice versa. Like China has the embassy, of course, in DC, which is our capital, but they also have a consulate in New York and San Francisco and Houston and Chicago.
Wow. So I just think, so thinking about leadership, thinking about how you have to govern yourself. So there are a lot of different elements that could go into this. So we're already talking about representing a country that in itself has some misrepresentations. Then we're also thinking about, being a foreign person in a foreign land. Then we're thinking about building relationships. We're thinking about having to travel even within. So I think about how different the United States is from North Carolina to New York to California to Texas. Like it's almost like foreign countries within our own country. because
Yeah.
you have to learn the culture, the feel. It sounds different, it feels different. So then you're going to another country and doing this, and I can only imagine the different feeling in the different parts of, especially a country like China, and a country with so many different people and so many people, period.
Yeah. Well,
There's just so much to manage there. So, I mean, let's just start with the idea of being a representative of a country that is in itself, I think even after, you know, 1776, which, give or take a few years, its establishment is still finding its way.
yeah, definitely.
How do you, and in that, the second piece is, how much control do you have in that representation?
Hmm.
So thinking about, the opportunity for authenticity, do you have it?
Yeah. So, I mean, so I'm technically commissioned by the president, and all foreign service officers are they serve at the leisure of the president. And my role is to represent not just the country but the U.S. government. And so when we talk about authenticity, looking at like sort of the bigger picture and bigger policy goals, you're not necessarily so much advocating for your own opinion and your own thoughts. You're advocating for the US government's position on a certain issue. So, my while I have my own opinions and thoughts about a lot of things, I also have to be very cognizant and careful about how what I say, what I do, because at the end of the day, when I am serving overseas, I'm a representation not only of the US, but I'm a representation of the US government. And so let's just say I did something and I got in trouble. It's no longer, oh, well, Brittany Carroll, an American, did XYZ. It is Brittany Carroll, a US diplomat, did XYZ. And so um when you're in that kind of position, um you have to be cognizant and aware about what you say and what you do, because you just never know um what's who's there, who's going on, who's listening, who's
Right.
um, so that can be a challenge in itself, especially if you're a newer officer. And if you, like in myself, I came straight from grad school. So they encourage you to speak your mind and advocate your point and your posture and basically analyze and also criticize U.S. postures and positions. And then you turn around and you almost have to kind of do the opposite, where it's like, this is the
Mhm.
policy that that's enforced, and this is a policy that we have to follow.
Right.
And when it comes to representing the US, I do think the US is still a very new country in comparison to a lot of countries in the
Mhm.
world. And so because we developed so quickly, but we also have so many diverse areas, like you mentioned before, the geography is different. It's a big country. The accents are different. The cultural aspects are different in different areas. One thing about the Department of State that I actually kind of like is the great equalizer is no matter what our experiences are, the requirements is that you pass the test. You don't have to have like a master's degree specifying specifically in international relations. You could be a new business and decides to pivot and say, hey, I just want to become a diplomat. As long as you pass those tests, we all come in starting at entry level. And
Mhm.
so, that's important because, I'm different from my colleague and my experiences just by the sheer nature of us being from different places in the United States. And so that diversity and ethnicity, culture, language, geography help sort of I think, paint a better picture for outside entities of understanding America. Because from the outside looking on in, we can be quite confusing. If you just watch mainstream media, if you just watch, like the news, and you sort of get the short and skinny of what's happening in the US, for an outsider, they're like, okay, what's going on in America? Like, what is going why y'all protesting again? Why is it on fire? What is happening? And it is essential. I mean, at this point, because we're so interconnected with the rest of the world, to make sure that our workforce reflects the diversity of America, so that we can tell the more accurate story of who and what America is.
Hmm. Wow. And so, in doing all of that, because if you are a diplomat, I know I would guess that you spend quite a bit of time having the opportunity to make a decision about what you say and what you do, even though you know you have boundaries, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Um, in all of that, do you ever at times feel like I am doing great as Brittany, the U.S. diplomat, but I have lost Brittany, the person, as you are dealing with your professional leadership versus your life leadership?
Oh yeah, all the time. I mean, this job is not, it's not super easy in the sense that like you're on 24/7, right? So like when I'm overseas and I'm on orders, it's kind of like, even when I just want to wind down and decompress, I can only wind down but so much. And I can be so loose lipped, or, I can only say but so much. Um, because you have to again be vigilant. I think what I've been doing as I get more experience in this sort of field is finding my avenues where I can still find my voice,
Mm-hmm.
or find avenues where I can legally share my thoughts and opinions without without completely publicly countering some of the U.S. government's posture on things. So for me, it's like some of the things I do, like, okay, I don't have to just do this job. I can write. I like to write. So one of my things right now is like writing a book, and then writing about like a family heritage story, and taking that creativity and channeling my voice and sort of like who I am into that, which is separate from Brittany, the management officer, you
Right.
know, or I pick up a hobby, or, I talk to interesting people and find my niche. So, like in Guyana, I really enjoy soca music, and I was on like my workout phase for a while. Um, this like little soca Zumba class, and I was there all the time. And that was like I could like shake my behind and stuff like that. Good workout and do my thing. And it's no judgment, no smoke. Like that's me having my time. That's me being myself. I travel a lot. I still can do that personally and have a good time. So I just try to find my avenues where I can express myself and do the things that I enjoy, so that it can give me balance. But one other thing that I think I've noticed, especially being in like a country like China, um, we in the US, we cannot imagine a life where like we cannot express ourselves or be individual, you know? And in a lot of places outside of the US, that is not necessarily the culture. And speaking out, or speaking your mind, or speaking up about everything is a lot, it can actually go against the culture.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's interesting because, in this job, you're looking at the bigger picture, right? And I often have to remind myself, who am I? I'm a singular person. Who am I, okay, at times, to take my own personal opinion and somehow insert it into a policy position that affects millions of people. You
Mm-hmm.
So there's a time and place when it's time to speak up
Right.
about things, but you don't have to speak up and speak out all the time. And so um that may have come partly in my experience in this job. I don't know if it's come with maturity too as you get older. Yeah, like older people
Right.
get quieter. Like they don't always have an opinion about everything. I
Right.
think sometimes it's good to listen and observe um, and pick the best time to actually advocate.
Right. So I remember a few weeks ago, I spoke with Dr. Deidre Guyon Peoples, and we talked about there's a time and a place where you need to speak, but then there's a time and place you just need to hush.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that especially as aspiring or budding leaders, sometimes we feel like the leadership what leaders should do is speak. You know, the leader should be the one talking. The leader should be the one making this decision. And you should hear the leader. You should see the leader, but you don't always have to.
Mm-hmm.
The true leader sometimes and oftentimes takes its time.
Yeah.
Takes its time. There are some things where you look, you got to just make a decision. You got to be able to do the thing. But there are other times where it is better to gather intelligence
Mm-hmm.
and then make the decision and then choose to speak and then know where to go. It's way better to do that than just to make the snap decision, than just to be the person who just felt the need to speak out because you felt the need to be heard. A leader doesn't always have to be heard. A leader doesn't even always have to be seen, because the effects of leadership, the influence of leadership is what can make the difference. And so I would gather that you spend a lot of time listening in
Mm-hmm.
your time as a diplomat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I find myself even now, even in my personal relationships, I listen a lot more, and I've even noticed that in my own self-awareness. It's like, oh, I'm just not talking or filling up so much of the conversation. I'm just listening. And I often say this even like with my family and friends. It's like, am I listening, or are you listening to respond, and are you just hearing me? Are you hearing or are you actually listening? Those are two different things.
Completely different.
And so, at this juncture in my life, my biggest thing is I want to be able to listen, to comprehend, and understand before I make any move. And it doesn't mean I don't make quick decisions or have to make, sort of have to think on my feet pretty quickly.
Right.
But for complicated issues, for complicated policy, long standing issues, it takes a lot of time to understand what's really going on.
Right.
Uh, so I'll give you an example. And everybody's like, what do diplomats actually do? And this is, again, it depends. That is a diplomatic answer. It depends, right? Because we all really do different things. But I can speak about what I do in management. So I have served as a general service officer, and basically, general service officer is in charge of everything from procurement, contracting, travel, shipment, housing. Motor pool, that's sort of like your drivers and whatnot. And so that was my very first position with service. And so housing can be one of the most like contentious issues, because you're assigned a house, but people and a board assigns you to a house, but people always complain about different stuff. In Guyana, people stuff, right? So you're basically a customer service agent all the time, and you're basically putting out fires all the time. And so I had a steep learning curve during that position, because people would come in and they would start complaining about something like, I hate the color pink on my walls. Like, I hate the wall color. I hate it, or my bathroom toilet in my guest bathroom is out. I need someone to come out and fix it now. Even though they have 5 toilets in their house, and there's only 2 of them, but they keep focusing on that guest bathroom toilet. And so you're listening to the complaint, but a lot of times it's not the pink wallpaper or the third bathroom that they never use. A lot of times it's other things outside of the complaint. They hate it there. They didn't want that position. Their marriage is in shambles. They're having a hard time at work. They're having a hard time with their boss. They can't stand how hot it is. Their children are a mess. There are all these other factors that they may not be sharing. But a lot of times you listening to the complaint, and it sometimes has nothing to do with what they're complaining about. So
Mm.
when you're dealing with that kind of energy day in and day out, and it could be on a minor scale or on a major scale, you do a lot of just sort of like zenning out.
Mhm.
Because when people are at level 10, you can't be at level 10 too.
Your energy cannot match that energy.
Yeah, so over time, I'm just sort of like, okay, when people are super flustered, I try to find ways in which I can understand the heart of the issue, and hope that we can get to a place where we can remedy the issue, even though I may not be able to help their marriage or their children or the fact they hate their job or their assignment. But I can at least be a sounding board when they need that. Because that honestly, I ain't gonna change the pink wallpaper, but I can be here. I can be here to listen to you complain because you needed that. And sometimes being that for people is important, especially in this kind of job.
Absolutely. And I think that that's needed more than people think as they are journeying to leadership. So I think about being a school principal because that's what I did in my former life.
Mm-hmm.
I was a school principal and I spent so much of my time being a sounding board. I
Mm-hmm.
was a sounding board for the students. I was a sounding board for the teachers. I was a sounding board for the rest of the staff. I was a sounding board for the parents. I was a sounding board for the community. Like everybody who needed to bring anything, it was coming to me. And sometimes, like you said, it came in the form of, why do I have to fill out this form? You don't even care about the form. You care about what happened at your job the other day, or you cared about something that happened at the school 7 months ago. You care about the fact that you don't like the way where the playground is placed. You're really upset about those things, but it came to a head with this form that I asked you to fill out twice
Mm-hmm.
because you didn't fill it out the first time. And so you spend all this time and you get all of these things poured on you. I won't even say into you because I think as a leader, you have a choice to decide whether or not to absorb it.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
it may rain on you
Mm-hmm.
pretty hard and you can either seal up or you're going to absorb. And if you absorb, you getting ready for a different type of life and I think that as leaders, sometimes we absorb more than we know because maybe our seal wasn't that strong. But it's finding those times one to get to the heart of the matter. So hopefully you can help them. But then remembering now you have absorbed all this stuff that got poured on you. And you have to find a way, a place to really deal with that. So like you talked about going to your what was it, Soka yoga? Like it was Soka class. Like you did
Yeah,
Soka.
yeah, there was like a Soka Zumba class.
So it's soca Zumba. So you got to go out there, you got to soca. You were sweating out all that absorption. Woo, 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 you get it out.
Mm-hmm.
And you're getting to be you. Because a lot of times when you're in those situations where you are the sounding board, you kind of have to shut down parts of you that like it just can't shine in that moment because at that point in time you are listening and you are not listening to respond, you're listening to understand because it's the whole point of listening. So you are doing all this and you have this stuff in you and you have had to hide part of you for part of a day.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. But
Yeah.
so I like to go back to what you said earlier is really in those times where you feel like you can't be as authentic as you would like to be because you are representing something more than yourself. Leaders, that's what we do all the time. When you're a member of a sorority, as we both are, you do that. When you are a member of any organization, period, you're doing that because people always will see that through you. You are the picture of that. Even a religion. If you profess a religion, and you act a certain way, there are certain people who are seeing that religion through you.
Right.
So you spend all this time being on,
Mm-hmm.
which is not always being fully who you desire to be. Because I would have said X, Y, Z if I wasn't representing X, Y, Z. I would have. That's what I would have said.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
Don't get me wrong. I'll go back for somebody out in the shower and I have a full conversation to myself of what I would have said in a different. And I'd be like, okay, once I let it out,
Right.
okay, cool. That's out. That energy is out. I can go back and refresh and do it all over again. So that's my human moment. It's like, oh, don't get it twisted in my head. In my head, I've had a full read session on you, but I have have now mastered just smiling through it all, trying to get you to calm down, and then try to get us to a place where we figure out, what's our next step. But yeah, I would say during my first 2 years as a foreign service officer, that was hard. I absorbed it a lot.
Mm-hmm.
To be fully transparent, I was very young. So I started off at like 25
Mm-hmm.
into service, and I had, adults. I had like people who were in the job much longer than me that I was supervising. I had one of the biggest sections in the embassy. And then I also had people who have been in the job longer than me who sometimes just didn't give me any grace whatsoever.
Wow.
And so not only am I learning but implementing, but I'm also trying to change, and that was a lot to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that kind of environment and being so new in that career. And I don't think that I had all the tools. I call it my little toolbox. I didn't have all the tools in my toolbox to figure out how to not absorb that emotionally and mentally. So
Mm-hmm.
person was hollering, yelling, or disgruntled about a certain service I was providing, I do think that a part of me took it very personally. It felt like it was an attack on me, instead of it being an either attack on just a lesson of how to manage difficult people, difficult situations, and it not necessarily be an attack on me. And so it's interesting. I'm going back into that same job. Now I'm like 6 years in,
Mm-hmm.
going into a little bit more of a different and more hostile situation, environment. So now that I've had that experience, I've take what I've learned from that. I can now, practice what I've learned, and even find some new ways in how to navigate sort of like difficult situations.
Right. So thinking about that and entering this new place that you're going, and just this idea of being part of your job is this huge piece of relationships.
Yeah, definitely.
So not only are you helping build and or maintain the relationships for an entire country, not that that's any big to do, but then you also have to navigate relationships personally. So you are going to these countries and living for an XYZ amount of time. It could be years, months. We I don't know. You may know, but the extensions happen because I think about diplomacy also could work like the military. You think you're going for a certain amount of time, and then something happens, and that time changes.
Yeah.
But then, so you are not only navigating these relationships for the country, but you're also navigating new relationships for yourself. Because I would imagine that you don't want to be solo over there the entire time you're there. You probably want to do some connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, one thing that I think that's sort of my strong suit is that I can probably talk to any and everybody. And so I've really enjoyed sort of like immersing myself in the culture. Is probably why this job is, that's why I pursued this kind of job. But I enjoy expanding my network, and not in a disingenuous way, but really just like meeting people in authentic situations and connecting with individuals who may not share the same culture or nationality or religious or political economic standpoint or viewpoints as myself. And the more I keep doing that and practicing that and meeting so many interesting people, particularly overseas, the more you realize that there's actually more commonalities amongst us as people in the human race than that we focused on.
Mm-hmm.
So, like for me, I honestly try to simplify it. Most people would like to live a happy life. Most people would like their basic needs met, food, rent, shelter.
Just those little things.
Yeah. And most people just would like to live a good life. Now, what that looks like for everybody is different. But if you get down to the heart of these things, you could connect over very simple things. And so I think always being thrust at a very young age in environments where I either was the minority or the only one, you start to learn how to find common ground with people, just so you can connect. And so that's one thing that I've been very grateful and fortunate to sort of innately tap into, is because now I have like friends all over the world, just because we can connect. I talked about the Soka workout class. I ended up meeting one of my really great friends who's Jamaican, but she worked for CARICOM, which is sort of like the Caribbean regional government for that area. And we still are very close friends. But like, because I went to that Soka workout class, we connected because we both liked the class. And then we figured out, after talking and hanging out with each other, we had more commonalities. And like, we just became really, really good friends. Or, in Guyana, I call him my brother, my Guyanese brother, but he used to take care of my dog a lot of times when I left. But we used to hang out all the time, and we connected because he worked in special education and my brother had special needs. Or I went to a coffee shop probably like my first weekend when I was in Guyana, and I saw this beautiful woman with her locks like down to her butt, and I was like, her locks are gorgeous. I was like, okay, I need to figure out who does her locks. Hi, who does your locks? And like to this day, we're still very good friends. And the same could be said for all of the connections I've made in China. You just sort of like in the right place, right time, or if you just get out of your skin, like get out of yourself for a little bit and try to meet new people, you realize that you have more commonalities with people than you would think.
Let me tell you. So I have a connection story with you about this hair, meeting somebody through hair.
Mm.
So there is a very beautiful woman, and when I say she's beautiful inside and out. Her name is Omi Sade, Bernie Scott, and she's just gorgeous. But I remember, so I was with another friend of mine, and I was being introduced to someone else I think we were having lunch at a cafe, and it was just this woman sitting on my room. And you ever just looked at somebody and you don't particularly want them to know that you're looking at them?
Yeah.
But she has the most beautiful, like silver, white, gray hair.
Mm.
It is gorgeous. And like it was in like a twist out full, and it's all its crowning glory. And she had on this beautiful white dress, and we just all just found ourselves doing, oh, this woman gonna know we're looking at her. She gonna be worried about her life because we keep staring at her. And so we were getting to the end of our lunch, and I was just like, excuse me, we have been staring at you. I need you to understand that we have been staring at you, and you are amazing. I don't know anything else about you except for your outer beauty right now, but even the way you sit and carry yourself is right regal, and so you are fabulous. And to this day, I can hit up Omi and we can talk, and we have shared so many things. I've been able, I actually ended up, who knew that life would take this journey? It was her son's principal for a bit of time, and just all these different things, all these different connecting points. But it was that moment of being open enough to
Mm-hmm.
just simply speak to someone about an attribute that you admired about them. And I think that when we think about life leadership, not just even professional leadership, but just having an attitude of, I can't say gratitude, but appreciation for someone else's shining moment.
Yeah, definitely.
It can create so many things, so many positive.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, because I in my last post I was the head of the Women's Civil Society Outreach Working Group. which does a series of like public program for mostly the Chinese audience, to talk about a variety of topics related to women empowerment or gender inequality, and either with a focus on the U.S. or China or just in a global context. And when I think about sort of like my tenure, especially up until I left, I would look around the room in the meeting and we were all from different backgrounds, all different ethnicities. And it was women and it was also men who were sitting and planning and organizing and coming up with these really amazing projects. And a lot of it was basically seeing something in each of those individuals, or seeing them like shine in a certain project before they even join the group, and say, hey, you did a really great job with X, Y, and Z. How would you like to join this group? This is what we do, and I think you'd be a great fit. And like every time I think about this group, I'm like, this is the kind of dream team I'm looking. This is the type of dream team I will always want wherever I go, professionally or personally. These people with all these different skill sets, but being open and willing enough to be like, hey, you're the bomb at this, or you do a great job with this. I would love for you to be on a team. Give people their props, and respect their craftsmanship or their work. And people, interestingly enough, would want to work and do certain things almost for free if they feel like they have been respected or they feel like they are valued. So
Mm.
people don't leave jobs because it's job. They leave jobs because of the management. And so for me, it's like, as I sit back a lot of times and observe what frustrated me in my supervisors or my superiors, that for me felt like poor examples of leadership. And 9 times out of 10, it was how they were making me feel, or they
Mhm.
valuing what I brought to the table, or they weren't listening. They were just hearing me. And so, now everything that I'm doing now is just trying to make sure that, okay, I'm not going to be perfect. I'm going to get things wrong.
Right.
And one saying, hey, I was wrong in that. Thank you for correcting me, or thank you for bringing that to my attention. But also, how can I be a better listener? And how can I give people, how can I make sure that they feel valued, so that they want to do even the not so jazzy work that we do?
Yeah, it's something about the way people make you feel. So I love the idea that you brought up, that people don't leave job, they leave managers or they leave leadership. That because if people are going from that job to another job just like it had nothing to do with the actual job. It had to do with their leader. It had to do with their environment. It had to do with possibly their pay. They're not leaving the job.
Yeah, yeah.
They are leaving that environment. They're leaving that leader. They're leaving that feeling, right? But the idea of feeling valued,
Mm.
and it's not even always a tangible thing. It's literally, how did you make me feel? Maybe you spent $1 at the dollar store. Like, so I remember one year I bought all my staff frames.
Mm.
And this was not too long, I guess, after the movie The Help came out. And I printed on paper, you was kind, you was smart, you was important. And I printed it out and I put it in these $1 frames. And I don't think they would be offended to know now that the frame was only $1. I'm pretty sure they already knew. It was like 40 of them. I was on an educator salary, principal and no principal. Educator salaries just aren't that big. So I bought them all this and I put it in these bags, and I'm sure there was some other Christmas gifts with it, but one of them was this frame. And oh my goodness, every time I saw somebody take it out of the bag, they either cracked up laughing just because they've seen the movie, or they was like, oh, thank you. I am kind, I am smart, I am important. Because it wasn't so much about the money. It wasn't even about the tangible. It was really about the feeling. I need you to understand that I think that you are kind, that you are smart, and that you are important. You are those things. Even though it came from this line in a movie, it is the reality of how I felt about my staff. And because I feel that way, I need them to understand that. Leaders, sometimes we have to remember that you got to say it sometimes. You've got to show it sometimes. And maybe it's not in words. Maybe I'm showing you that I value you by when you turn in your PTO, I'm not complaining about it. Maybe I'm applauding your PTO. Good job, way to take off, because I care about you enough to understand that, yes, you need to go to the beach.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's about the way I'm not going to make you feel guilty when you come to ask me a question. Leaders should be asking questions. So as a leader, I'm hoping to be growing leader. So my goal is to enforce question asking. I want you to ask a question. If you are confused, I need you to tell me you are confused. Yes, there's some things that you're gonna have to figure out on your own because you're a leader, and sometimes you have to make that decision like that. But if you don't, and you got time to ask a question, good leaders ask questions. So ask a question. I'm gonna make you feel like that's okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes that has to do with our posture, our tone, our facial expressions. Like I know a lot of people who are fighting the facial expression, and they trying to, the ministry is this jacked in here because they'll say the right things, they'll try to sound right, but the way their face looks is really tore up. So they're affecting the way they're making people feel. And so in creating environments, so you're over people, and you're over people sometimes are already looking at you sideways because either you work shorter than them or you're younger than them, like you told us before. How do you as a leader create an environment where people feel like, oh, okay, aside from the fact that she's going to listen to me about this pink wallpaper that she's done good and well, she's not going to change, how else do you make them feel like they're valued?
Yeah. I think that's still a work in progress. I think that every person needs different things, right? So in like supervision training, they talk about, there's this like really interesting like quadrant that they use where it's like it's broken up in 4 quadrants, and it's like understanding where your staff is, and like you have these 4 quadrants where it's like you beginner and motivated, and then it's like not so much beginner but not quite motivated, learn how to do your job and not quite motivated. And then third one's like over the job. They know their job, but they know it and they're like over it. And then it's like you have like super high, they know their job to a T, and they are also motivated to do their job. And ideally, you will always want people, especially you've been in a job for a long time, to be in quadrant 4. But most people are usually tinkering between quadrant 2 and quadrant 3, right? So it's kind of like, for me, one of the things that I've observed in some of the leaders that I have admired and respected a lot is they are constantly open. One, they have an open door policy, but they are constantly open to feedback and constructive criticism of their leadership style.
Mm.
And that for me helps. It like helps as an employee. It brings your guard down a little bit, because I mean, in the foreign service, it's hierarchical in much sense like the military, and
Mhm.
we are also in a sorority, so we understand deference.
Right.
And there's not you're going to be very careful about some of the things you do say to certain people just because of their rank and their position.
Right.
So but at the same time, a leader who is just asking for feedback about their leadership style means that it just makes it a more open and accessible environment for people to feel comfortable. And then you can start, really, if you create that environment, you really actually get to the heart of issues a lot quicker. These people guards are down,
Right.
right? So if you have created an open door policy where people can come in and vent, and then they feel so comfortable with you where they're really sharing a whole lot of information, now you understand it's not about the pink wallpaper, because you done started talking about your frustrations with everything else. And if I can get you so calm where you realize it ain't the wallpaper either, and you yourself have gotten to that point, I feel like I've done my job in a sense that, I've created an environment where you feel free, open to share your concerns or whatever is bothering you. And I'm also willing to listen to how I come off. So I think there's a lot of people that are in charge, but they don't know how to get feedback about their leadership style and evolve and change based on the situation and the person. I,
Mhm.
so I'm just, again, I'm still figuring out. I'm gonna be very honest with you. I'm still trying to figure it out. I still feel very relatively new in the career. I've been around for a little bit, but I still, um, I'm aware that I'm probably somewhere in quadrant. I tinker between quadrant 2 and quadrant 3. It just depends, and sometimes on quadrant 4 depends on what task you give me. But it's just sort of like being willing to adapt and be flexible
Right.
to a situation. So I don't know. You're gonna have to check back in a couple years, see like I have like a surefire, foolproof, like guide on how to be, just have a better leadership style to make people feel comfortable and want to work and all that good stuff. So I don't know. Though the other thing I would say is opportunity. I think if you give people the opportunity, especially if they prove that they have a desire to do certain things, you'd be just surprised at like how far or how motivated people can be if they're just given the opportunity and space to shine. And um one thing that I did see in my first job was, you know, I may not be getting the award, but if my staff is getting the award for something that they're doing, you know, I have to be doing something right.
Right.
So there's something that I'm doing that is allowing other people to reward my staff for the great work that they're doing. And it's not about my accolades. And honestly, I want my people to shine and I want them to get their flowers. I want them to get their awards because I want them to know that they are doing excellent work and they can keep doing excellent work. Um so that was one thing that I definitely, that was a lesson that I learned from my first posting. My second posting, I was like, oh, I am going to make sure that I advocate for rewarding people when they do excellent work. So that group that I talked about, the women's group that I led, I each year I was putting in awards for them, and keeping tabs on what people did down to like note taking. Like I wanted to make sure that every person was recognized because it's important. I'm not like consolation prizes, but like it's important if you like, I mean, I don't really believe in like, oh, you should get an award for showing up for job. That's
Right.
silly. I'm like, oh, you did this. This is out of the purview of your responsibilities. You weren't getting paid to stay after hours from 7 to 9 o'clock to do public programming. You wrote this, you edited this, you did these things, and you did it for free almost. Why? What does it do for me if I don't reward you?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna tell you, Brittany, we are rounding up on our hour. So I try to be respectful of the people's time.
Okay.
But I mean, you brought up something really powerful, and I want to just, we're not gonna get all the way deep into it, but I do want to tap on it. And just a quick thought, as this is going to be our final thought today. If so, you brought up something about the idea of a dream team,
Mm-hmm.
having a dream team. If you could think about your personal leadership and leaders of other leaders, if you were putting together a dream team of personalities to have around you or strengths to have around you, what would your dream team look like?
Wow. Honestly, um, that's a hard question. That's a good final question, huh? dream team, actually, I'm a huge advocate for having people who are very different from each other. And that maybe possibly be because looking forward, like looking into the future of diplomacy, um if you have one lens in which you're looking framing a situation, you have no that is not a good way to really understand a very complicated issue, right? So one of the biggest things that a lot of organizations, companies are doing is D&I work, right? A
Mm-hmm.
inclusion work. Well, in the context of like diplomacy, if I don't have people around the table who coming from different backgrounds, ethnicities, cultures, identities, and have these experiences that are so different from mine, that may be relatable to what's going on, and because I didn't experience it or don't know that, I can't speak to that. I want somebody who has something completely different than what I have. So my dream team usually are people who are not afraid to challenge me, in a sense, to say, hey, I think you need to look at it in this context, not now necessarily this context. I'm also like people who have different sort of ways in which they communicate. I'm more of a direct communicator, so I have a more directive style when I communicate, and I'm get straight to the point. I actually value when some people don't get straight to the point, because it again helps me with understanding that everybody don't think like me and everybody talk like me. So if I'm in a meeting with someone from a host nation that is speaking differently than me, if someone on my team also communicates the same way, because I've had that experience with that team member, now I kind of know what's going on in this meeting, and I can change, shift, and adapt, because I've had that experience on my dream team. Um, so yeah, I just want people who are diverse, bring different skill sets, different ideas to the table, and I just like people who have a good work ethic, like
Mm.
good work ethic, and love to work in a group setting. Can work on their own, but like really are team players, because I've seen amazing things being pulled off when people are like in sync with one another.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. So I'm going to challenge everyone who's watching now, or if you are hashtag replay, and please do let us know that you're here if you are watching this on the replay, that I want you to sit down and think about your dream team.
Mm.
Brittany just gave us a beautiful picture of true needs to balance and to help us grow and help us shift, help us make great decisions, help us have experiences that we might not have if we had a team that all looked just like us, it just all talked and operated just like we did. Sometimes your dream team needs to have some shifts. But you also have to be aware of you authentically, who you are, how you show up. And once you know that, then maybe you can assemble your dream team better. So, one of the pillars I always stand on as Dr. Renita, as an educational leadership strategist, is to be, work with authenticity, empowerment, and impact. And authenticity is, being one of the very first steps. You have to deal with you first. But when you do, then you can do things like assemble a dream team that can really, I mean, at the end of the day, for lack of better ways to put it, change the world. You can really change the world with the right team around you. And team really matters. Teamwork really does make the dream work. It does take a village. So, Brittany, thank you so much. You have given us so many ridiculously amazing insights in the most calm and nonchalant almost way, because it is just who you are. You are fabulous just as you are. So if anybody wants to follow you or get in contact with you, is there any where they can do that?
Yeah, my Instagram page is open. I speak pretty candidly and open about my experiences when I'm overseas and when I'm traveling. So you can follow me on Instagram. It's Mosaic, MOSAIC again, MOSAICXB.
And I'll
And
put it in the chat.
I said that right. But yeah, you can follow me on Instagram. I don't have a blog. I'm not really much of a blogger, but I do post a lot of stuff on Instagram. And you can follow me there.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Brittany, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I tell everybody every week, my guest is not going to let you down. It hasn't happened in 23 weeks. Why would you think it's going to happen now? We are 23 good weeks in to the year 2021, and I have had 23 stinking amazing, fabulous, and awesome guests. So thank you
Thank
for helping me keep my word.
No problem, sis.
You are so awesome. And everyone out there, thank you so much for joining us once again for Leadership Live, week 23. I will be right back here next Monday night for week 24 of Leadership Live with another amazing and fabulous guest. Once again, 23 weeks. I hadn't let you down. So why would I let you down in 24? I won't. It's going to be great. I love you all. And as always, I encourage you to keep your leadership all the way live. And I'll see you next week. Bye.